This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host Keith Angle on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good evening, everybody. Keith Angle here for TGI Sports Talks College Football Huddle. How's everybody doing tonight? Whenever you do see this, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You'll see us tomorrow and Friday at 11:30 Eastern Time on Roku. Good to have you all with us tonight. Hope you're all doing well and you survived the official week one of the NCAA football season. Kind of a wild week one. Bama rolls, Georgia rolls, Oregon gets hammered by Georgia. Bad weekend for the Pac-12. Bad weekend for Brian Kelly. So-so weekend for Notre Dame. Probably didn't hurt themselves. And we'll go through some of the big winners and losers maybe of week one. Florida, big winner as well, by the way. You'll see as they move up the polls here as we talk about. So lots to talk about tonight. We'll get into all of that. We'll look at, as I said, some of last week's stuff. We'll look at the big games coming up this week and give you some of our insight. We'll look at the top 25 and we'll look at some other things as well. And we'll be joined by Jim Biringer from Mad Radio Network. They'll join us to have his initial thoughts on the college football season and a little bit about the college football playoff expansion, which we also will be chatting about as we go forward. We didn't get a chance to last week as that news broke on Friday. Good evening, Augustin. How are you? Good evening, Alan. Good to have you with us. Got a good tan. Yes, did survive. Alan was at the Oklahoma UTEP game last week. And Alan and I did our NFL preview show, which you can catch on Northeast Streaming Sports. You can find the show there that we did last weekend and played live last night. And I'll replay it as well on TGI Sports Talk here and there as well. Got a little liking my screen right now, so apologize for that. So thanks, Alan, for doing that with me. But tonight we're going to concentrate on the world of college football. Bad weekend for Iowa. Their offense was non-existent against South Dakota State. Now, in their defense a little bit, this is not a bad football team that they played. They're second or third in the rankings of bear with me one second here. Where's my rankings here? So if you go to we had them here somewhere I did away with my rankings. Somebody's been messing with my computer. This looks like. Oh, bear with me. South Dakota State is number 3 in the FCS coaches poll. So North Dakota State, South Dakota State, good football programs, but Iowa's got to do better than 7 points. And no touchdowns, guys. No touchdowns. Yeah, Augustin, I know you're an Oregon fan, and they didn't just get beat, man. They got a beat down. We'll talk about some of that with Jim Biringer coming up here in just a few minutes. And then we'll get into your topics as well from week one, the storylines coming up in week 2. Anything that you guys really want to dive into, we can certainly do tonight, as we're going to have till 8:30 tonight to talk about it. Big story in college football really is the expansion of the college football playoff, which we'll be diving into with Jim Biringer. Finally, they've got a unanimous consent or agreement to move forward with a 12-team playoff. I still would like to have seen the 16-team playoff that I laid out, which I did never claimed was my brilliant idea, by the way, and I was threatened a lawsuit over. I still would like to see the 16-team plan, but the 12-team plan at least keeps the little guys alive. The Big Ten and the Big Ten and the SEC can't be upset either, because with 6 at-large berths, they're going to have a pretty good shot at having, 2-3 teams in sometimes, these 2 leagues. So, but with the 6 highest-ranked conference winners getting in, the Power 5 are pretty much guaranteed of 5 spots. And then you're going to have whoever's the highest ranked, whether it's the American Conference, the AAC. It could be the Mountain West some years. Again, it depends on how these things shake out. There's no guarantee that by the time this happens in 2026 that the Pac-12 will necessarily have the winner will be one of the 6 top-ranked teams. We don't know that. So a lot to shake out here. I don't think anything will happen before it could. Listen, if TV contracts can be broken, things can be worked out. We now have a unanimous decision. This works out for Notre Dame as well, because they stayed at 4. They were going to have trouble staying an independent. Now they got a shot to, maybe if they can schedule, stay independent, still have a 1-6 shot of making the playoff every year, where they've got a 1-4 shot now. So it's still a better deal for Notre Dame. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. We're going to talk with Jim Biringer about just that when he pops in here in just a couple of minutes. So, and we certainly want to get your guys' thoughts on the playoff expansion as well. And we'll go around the world of college football. We'll look at the top 25. We'll look at some of the movers up and down. I mean, Oregon took the biggest drop out of, I think, both polls, if I'm not mistaken. No, they hung into coach's poll at 24, but they dropped right out of the AP poll. They're the first team out. So they were the biggest loser. Utah was another big loser over the weekend. North Carolina State, even with a victory, they dropped a bunch in the AP poll. They dropped 5 spots. It's early in the year, and a lot of things can happen. Some big news, too, out of Wake Forest with Sam Hartman returning from his mysterious non-football related injury, which turned out to be we'll look at the story here in a little bit. I didn't recognize the syndrome, if you will, that he had. It caused blood clotting. It was a dangerous situation, but now it's been cleared up. He's been cleared to play. Whether we'll see him this weekend against Vanderbilt still remains to be seen. But there's some interesting conversation there as well. And there's some interesting conversation elsewhere around the world of college football as well, as we talk about the rankings. And there's some quarterback volatility. Clemson unsure if they'll stick with DJ. Cade, what's his name? What's Cade's name? I always forget his name. Give me the name. Cade Kaluski. Help me out, Alan. Where's Alan when I need him? Can't find his name. True freshman. Gosh, that's killing me now. Where's that question? I saw it earlier brought up. There were a lot of comparisons to be drawn between Clemson in 2018 when they had Bryant and they were putting Trevor Lawrence in for significant parts of games before he finally took the job and lost Bryant. He transferred out to save, because before the 5th game, you can still redshirt and save yourself a season. So it's doubtful that Clemson will make this move before week 5 in my mind, because they would have no backup plan if the kid should fail. If the kid should fail, then they'd have no backup plan, right? So if they don't make this move before week 5, then DJ can't transfer away. go play somewhere else next year and also be off the team this year. So Vandy's on the up. We'll find out this weekend. This will be a good test for Vanderbilt playing Wake Forest. They dismantled Hawaii a couple of weeks ago, and Hawaii's going to get Michigan this week. So I'm not convinced Vanderbilt's, an up-and-comer, but we'll find out real quick. I see Jim Biringer just getting in the room. Let me go through a couple of comments before I bring him in. Let's see. Carlos is in the room. I didn't say good morning or good afternoon or good evening. Sorry about that, Carlos. How are you? Wake, listen, I think it'll be a good football game between Wake and Vanderbilt. I do think Wake will win. I think their offense is just too good to lose to a program the likes of Vandy. They have trouble with upper echelon teams like Clemson for sure, but I don't see them losing to Vanderbilt, who, even if they're on the up and on the come, as Carlos mentioned, I'm not sure that they got enough to handle Wake. A lot of kids back in Wake Forest. This is still a good football team returning from last year's edition. Praying for Texas. Yeah, listen, Steve Scarsazian says that that they will not be, this game will not, what was his words? Define who Texas is as a team. And I sure hope not, because they're about to get a beatdown. And there's that comment from, get a couple more comments here, and then I'll bring in Cade McNamara. No, not Cade McNamara. He plays for Michigan. The kid from Clemson, his name's escaping me, the freshman. Jim will probably be able to remind me when he comes in. We have a ranking now. Augustine, we have do rankings out on Tuesdays. We'll talk a little bit about that. The dogs, we'll talk a lot about them too. Rick, congratulations to your dogs. As I said on Sunday, 49-3. I knew that I never expected them to lose the game. I did not expect them to win by 45. Well, there's a good, you're not really going out on a limb there when you say 27-21 either way. Thank you, Cade Klubnik. Gosh, I knew it was right there. I had it right on. I had Stanley Kubrick in my head because I just watched Dr. Strangelove the other night. Texas will be into the game for a half. I'd be surprised. Anyway, let's bring in Jim Biringer. Good evening, Mr. Biringer. How are you?
What is going on, everybody?
Jim Biringer for his initial appearance on this. Well, we had you on in the offseason to talk a little bit about the realignment issue that finally we got some games that we don't have to talk about just realignment. But, I mean, the main topic you and I are going to get into tonight, and we'll talk about, some of the big winners and losers you saw from last weekend maybe, and then what you're looking forward to this weekend. But I want to concentrate, let me get your banner up here, on the expansion of the playoff, which in my mind is a life preserver to every conference that's not named the Big Ten or the SEC. The way it's laid out, 6 top. And again, I made comments to this comment on this when we opened the show. The 6 top ranked conference winners are guaranteed berths. By 2026, there's no guarantee the Pac-12, for instance, will have one of the top ranked conference winners, right? So this is not necessarily a lifeline for, say, the Pac-10 or the ACC if there's further rating. But anyway, what do you think, Jim, about this whole? I'm glad they finally went somewhere. Do you think it's enough to save some of these other conferences?
I mean, my first initial thought was, what conferences are going to exist in 2024, 2025, and 2026? The way things are going. I mean,
fans are all out.
I know, right? Everybody's back. Everybody missed me.
All right. You didn't even know what was going on here.
Yeah, the fan club's here. But it's funny because if that was my first initial thoughts, it's just like, okay, are we going to have all these conference champions by 2026? Like, I know that Big Ten will exist. I know the SEC will exist. I don't know about the Big 12, the Pac-12, the ACC, the American. I don't know where all these conferences are going to, be at that point. Yeah. And the big thing for me is this is really got the conversation going for me to come on, is my big question is what about Notre Dame in all this picture? Like, what if they don't join a conference? And you're telling me a good Notre Dame team that's undefeated, you're gonna put them ahead. You're gonna put them as an at-large. Like, I mean, come on. Like, if they run the table and there's a team, a conference champion that won their 2 losses, I'm putting Notre Dame in one of those 6 spots to get in the playoff.
Yeah,
like, I'm not giving them an at-large.
They could be ranked number 1, right, and get an at-large bid.
Right, exactly. Like that doesn't make sense, but it makes me wonder now, who makes the play for them, because we know what the Irish did when they were in the ACC. I thought it was one of their better seasons. You played for a championship game, played for a conference championship. Right now, the way it is, you can be out of you still be independent with 1 loss and just be sitting on the sidelines. I agree with Carlos. I play for the Pac-12 too.
Yeah, they're the one hanging by a thread for sure.
Well, I mean, Oregon just got a rude awakening into what life is going to be like in playing in a big conference. Texas is going to get a rude awakening into what it's going to be like to play in the SEC this weekend. And they might be, I wonder if there's no going back now, but you wonder after some of these performances, some people got to be rethinking some of their decisions. And going forward, the thing for me is if SC can, establish themselves this year under Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, maybe they get into a playoff this year. They're going to have to take out a good Utah team that, if it wasn't for an interception, I think should have beat Florida. Florida played really well at home. But
Florida did play well. The Pac-12 and Utah is the big losers from this past weekend. USC would have, in my mind, to run the table to make the playoff. Any Pac-12 team's got to run the table.
I agree with that 100%. I think that SC would have to run the table in the Pac-12 and to be relevant, and then move into the Big Ten, where you're going to play a lot of these big schools. It's going to be a tough transition, but like, it's all about money. We've talked about it before with this expansion stuff. It's all about money. It's all about, and they were talking about TV deals today. Did you see this one? That they're going to try to split the revenue TV deal similar to what the NFL does. So, like, everybody's going to get like $2.2 million out of this whole thing that's going to come out of this when they decide to get the TV rights up for the playoff. So it's going to be crazy. It's all about money. But one is never enough, because for me, it's like if you look at it, right, you go back to I was looking at these standings, right, going back now that they expanded to 12. And I said, okay, you could make a case for 12 teams. And then there's always going to be the 13th to 14th team that say, well, we can get in. But then if you look at the rankings, there's some teams 3 losses, 2 losses. It's like, why are you going to be in here? We're going to just see blowouts anyway, because we see them in the semifinals anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I'm for the expansion. I personally wanted to see them go to 16. And yeah, you'll have some blowouts just like you do in the NCAA tournament, but yeah, I think it would be fun. And
I think the big takeaway from it is that the higher seeds are going to have playoff games on campus. Like, I think the first round, I believe, is going to be games on campus.
Most likely. And then I think the second round would incorporate the New Year's Day bowl games and that type of thing, right? Because look, the Rose Bowl, they want to get involved in this whole thing, but they also want to preserve that 445 spot on New Year's Day. They don't want to give that up.
No, they don't want to give that up.
So, there's a lot to be worked out. Going back to Notre Dame for a second, I mean, you bring up a great point. I mean, in a way, this benefits them because right now they have a 1-4 shot to get in a playoff. With the expansion, they'll have a 1-6 shot of getting in, which does help them. But it does hurt them if they finish in the top 4 spots and are not going to be interested in one of the top 6 teams in a playoff. That's very odd. When you asked me the question the other night, I don't even think I was thinking about it in the context probably that you asked me the question. So it's very, very interesting what will play out here. And here's the other thing. 2026 is a long ways away. There's more realignment. There's other things to come. We don't know. There's nothing set in stone and written down that says this will definitely happen. So it could happen sooner. It could not happen at all. We've seen how fast things can change on the NCAA, in the world of the NCAA sports world, let's say.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, they're trying to push this through. I think even earlier. I think they want to try to get it by like 2024 or something, maybe even earlier than that. It's going to be
Break
tough.
the TV contract, but again, if you're going to get the TV networks involved, and they're going to make money, then they're going to be willing to look at changing that contract sooner, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you get more networks involved.
Yeah, and you end up buying people out if they're not going to be. You're probably going to have for that contract. I'm going to guess all the major networks. ESPN, obviously, along with ESPN, or I'm sorry,
ABC, yeah.
ABC, sorry. And you're liable to get Amazon and Apple and all these streaming services involved as well, just like they are on the NFL. And that's what's going to drive the price up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I'm the NCAA, while having Amazon and Apple is a good thing, I think I want to try to keep these playoff games on network television and ESPN.
If you want eyeballs, you got to. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Because you see the mess that's going on with the Yankees right now.
Yeah.
And baseball.
You never know where to find anybody for crying out loud.
Exactly. So at least you know what's on right now. ESPN, Fox, CBS got games. Those networks got games.
Yeah. Now it isn't always easy to figure out who's playing where either. No. I mean, even Notre Dame with their network deal, we don't know whether they're on NBC or on Peacock on any given week. So it gets a little tough even in the college world. But you do know you can find games.
Yeah, exactly.
You may not find the one you want, but you're going to find games for sure.
Absolutely.
Anyway, the playoffs going to be something that's very, very interesting, and we'll play. I think it throws a lifeline to these other conferences, as we talked about during this realignment discussion that we had. I kind of think there's going to be one more conference that will be kind of like 1A below at the SEC and the Big Ten. So we'll see who would. I think it'll be the Big 12 myself, and I think the Pac-12 will be in trouble. The ACC will be in trouble. And then you're going to see people scrambling, whether the ACC goes away and those schools get gobbled up by the American, or the Pac-12 schools get gobbled up, some by the Big 12, some by the Mountain West, or the Mountain West gets gobbled up into the Pac-12. We don't know what's going to happen, but there's going to be a lot of changes by 2026. We know that.
Absolutely. Definitely going to be a ton of changes. We don't know who's going where. What teams are bolting, what teams are jumping. We know there's going to be some realignment next year. So it's going to be interesting with like Cincinnati and Houston jumping in.
I saw it. This is a good, Alan's got a good point here. So last year would have been Alabama, Michigan, Cincinnati, Baylor. I'm right, because they won that's a good point. So Utah, Pittsburgh.
Wait, oh yeah, that's right. Alabama did win the SEC last year. That's right.
Yeah, so Pittsburgh would have had the last automatic seed. Then you would have had Georgia, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, and Michigan State. Now that would have been a good playoff.
That would have been a great playoff. Like last year, if you look at the top 12 teams, it was really good football, and a lot of those major bowl games were really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, all these teams played in major bowl games and played in great games. Oklahoma State played Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, and that was
it was awesome.
It was a great
awesome game.
Yeah, you saw a great game amongst Utah and Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. And not saying they would have played each other in this playoff format, but still, I think this is a good representation of what you would see going forward. I did see a story, and I didn't want to get into it because it was pretty convoluted, but they went back. There was a story that went back probably 15 years and showed how many teams would have played in how many playoffs. I think it was actually, I take it back. It went back to like 2000 and maybe 2000, because Alabama would have been in 16 times out of those 20 years, and they led the way.
Of course they did.
Georgia wasn't too far behind them. Notre Dame was like 8. I wish I could find that story quick. I should have had it up for tonight's show.
I bet you LSU was up there.
LSU, I think, because again, they went back and they looked at the standings just like Alan did here.
I only went back when I did it. I only went back to the birth of the playoff. In the college football rankings. That's how far I went.
Which probably makes sense to only go back that far anyway, since the rest of it's kind of irrelevant. But because
the BCS only took the top 2 teams anyway.
Anything's better than what the BCS was.
Yeah, it really was.
I would have rather go back to just taking the top poll the teams at the top of the polls to
Yeah,
play.
exactly.
Or actually, no, I'm sorry. When they had just the
AP poll, right?
well, you had your conference alignments with the bowl games, and you'd go play. The Big Ten played the Pac-12 in the Rose Bowl, no matter what, and the Orange Bowl was the Big 8 or the Big 12, whatever you want to call it at the time. They had an at-large that could play there. The Sugar Bowl was the SEC and an at-large, so you'd have different matchups, and you'd have some arguments over the years about who was a national champion. But I'll be honest with you. While you didn't always have a clear-cut national championship, college football was being talked about all the time. So
yeah, controversy makes cash.
I don't know whether. Good evening to Logmere. That's a new name. Good evening. I don't know where you're in from, but let us know where you're checking in from, because we like new viewers all the time. What do you think about the playoff expansion? That's what we've been talking about. I think I like it. Jim's not too sure if he likes it, but
I mean, here's the thing for me. I like it. They expanded to 12. We're gonna have. It's just, where does it end? I guess it's the cynic in me, because you see it in NCAA in the March Madness, teams that you have the 60-18 field, 69 and 70 cry and complain they should have been in. Like, how far are we going to get to where like everybody's getting in these rankings? But it does make it better, because now kids aren't going to pull out; they're actually going to play games now.
Yeah, exactly. Again, and people think the argument's always it lessens the importance of the regular season, and I argue that it makes it more important. Does Utah's loss to Florida, would it be as important in a 12-team playoff? Probably not, but it's still important
because for them they gotta go. Say we had 12 teams this year, right? Say Florida, for instance, was up for an at-large, right? And the rankings are out there. Yep. Well, what if it comes down to the 12th seed and Florida owns head-to-head? That could happen.
Yeah, you're not. Regular season's always going to be important, because
regular season is awesome. I mean, look, to me, I don't know, watching college football last week, starting on Thursday through Monday, excellent football all weekend. Nothing but great games, great finishes, just fun stuff last weekend for college football.
Let's dive in that quick. Give me a quick take on. And again, it doesn't have to be a team. It could be a coach. It could be anybody. It could be a league. Who's your big winners and losers? Give me a couple winners and losers for you over the weekend.
I agree with you. I think Utah was a big loser, especially for the Pac-12. I think you got to go in there, considering all the turmoil with Florida last year, coaching and everything. Granted, Richardson had it balled out, but Utah, we've seen what Utah can do, and I think they should have blown the doors off of Florida. I know it's tough to play in the swamp, but they should have won last week. Obviously the big schools looked really good. Obviously, Ohio State, Notre Dame looked good on Marcus Freeman, held them first half. I think he's got to make some adjustments, especially with that offense. Young quarterback, freshman cornerback is going to be tough, especially in the big situations. I know you don't take moral victories out of anything, but Notre Dame definitely looked good. We know what they did in the bowl game. But they're on the upswing for sure. Ohio State looks really good. Bama looks good. Georgia looks really good. Look, I don't care what polls say. Oregon was not the 11th ranked team in the nation. If everybody watched what happened last year, where they got smoked twice by Utah. Mario Cristobal, recruiting. Everybody thought he had a great class. He might have a better class in Miami than he does than he did in Utah. But, I thought Utah not Utah. Oregon was just outmatched and outclassed by Georgia. I will say, good showings by the Big Ten this week, especially Rutgers, the New Jersey school, a lot of people giving the slack, but that's a nice win against a good BC team, and they, going up there and winning. I thought that was a nice win, and they ran the football. It's funny. I always talk to my dad. I'm like, maybe they should run the football. I think the final 11 plays, if they ran the ball 10 times and had one incomplete pass and won the game. So I thought that was a nice little fun game for them. But I agree, Florida, nice win for them, especially
Very
over
nice.
very good Utah team.
Yeah, I would rank the Pac-12 in general as big losers this weekend with the way Oregon and Utah performed against elite competition or interconference competition. I would count Brian Kelly and LSU as a loser this week.
Big time loser.
That was a game that they should not have lost. And I'm not ready to call Florida State a winner yet either, because they got to show me a little more than they showed, I think, against, an undermanned LSU team.
What do you think, though? What do you think about the play call? Considering the field goal being blocked, you go for two there? I'll go for the win.
More often than not, in overtime, you end up with that silly going for two thing anyway.
Well, we saw in the Houston game.
I'd gone for it right then and there.
I would have gone for two, gone for the win.
Yeah,
don't leave it up to special teams. Just go for the win. They had Florida State. The defense was on their heels, had a nice drive, quarterback playing good. I just go in and win the game.
I'll give you another loser of the big schools. You said the big conferences did well. Iowa, even though they won, Iowa is a loser to me.
That game was so bad.
To get 7 points and out of two safeties and a field goal, that does not speak well. And South Dakota State's not a bad football team.
Yeah, but that game was bad.
But you got to score a touchdown in that game anyway. I mean, geez, Iowa's not an offensive powerhouse, but that's just embarrassing.
What do you
John
think?
DeLon's in the house tonight, one of my SEC elitists. They're now what I thought was a derogatory term they're embracing here on the show.
Yeah, I guess so. How about the victory by how about Pittsburgh showing some moxie on that Thursday night, coming back with that win?
That was a fun game. I thought Pittsburgh showed a lot of moxie coming back and winning that game. But I thought JT Daniels and the Mountaineers played good. And the transferring from Georgia, he gets a chance to play. So I think he comes away a little bit of a winner, even in a losing.
Some still similar mistakes that he had in Georgia, some interceptions that were not really that good.
Yeah, another loser I think I would say this weekend, because if he doesn't start to play better, it's going to get scary for DJ in Clemson, because I've already forgotten his name again.
Klubnik.
Klubnik came in and played very well at the end. Now it's garbage time.
But that team was energized with him in the lineup more than they were with DJ.
Yeah, the fans are screaming for him to play. Now, the problem with him, and they're comparing it to 2018 when Lawrence took over for Bryant after Bryant had taken him to a playoff the year before. The difference there was that I don't think he'll do it early in the season, Debo, because if he does it now before week 5, and DJ can just leave and save a year of eligibility and it's redshirt before week 5, and he won't have an experienced quarterback. If Klubnik should fall on his face or get hurt or whatever, he'd be in big trouble in the quarterback spot. So I think if he makes this move, he won't make it until after week 5. That's just my thought.
Yeah, I mean, but DJ's got to play better for Clemson, because there's definitely, I agree, Klubnik can definitely come in and ball out. Now, again, we don't know who Georgia Tech was playing. It could have been ones, could have been twos, but it doesn't really matter. Everybody just needs to be DJ's got to play better with Dabo there. And, yeah, I agree. He'll have to wait it out if he's going to make the move.
Yeah, I agree. Get through a couple comments here while we still got you, Jim, and we'll talk about this week's games a little bit before we let you go. Iowa should fire. Look, Kirk Ferentz probably isn't getting fired, but if I'm not mistaken, his son might be the offensive coordinator there.
I believe he is.
He could be in a little bit of trouble. So,
well, I mean, look, I said last week, I said Scott Frost wouldn't make it to the Rutgers game. So they got to win, but I don't know if he still makes it to the Rutgers game.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I had on the show last week. To me, the question is no longer whether he's going to get fired. It's just whether he'll survive this season. I think
exactly.
He got himself fired with that onside kick up 11 points.
Stupid.
I don't know what he's thinking about there. John DeLon is an original SEC elitist, so we do give you your credit there, John. I promise you. Out of these 6 teams, which one has the best chance to be ranked next week?
That's a good question.
Oregon. Oh, I see. So these teams, I got you. Well, Oregon's out, so they're out in one poll, in the other.
I think Penn State will probably be in. But they'll probably be at the bottom next week.
Yeah, one more win, they'd probably get in.
Texas won't be ranked because they're going to get shellacked.
Yeah, Texas will probably fall out of the rankings because I think they'll get beat almost as badly as Oregon did myself. So that's a good question. Penn State, listen, I'm not a big James Franklin fan, and I like Purdue. Purdue's got a good football team.
That was a really good game.
Yeah, Penn State was lucky to get out of there with a win.
Very tough to play in that building, on that field. Very, very tough.
Yeah, Oregon and Bo Nix definitely losers. Bo Nix he's a guy you could put on your loser list for last week.
He just can't play against Georgia.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. He got out of the SEC. He probably should have said, "Let me sit down during this game." Right? They're 26-31 in the AP poll. I get you. Yeah, I would say Penn State might have the best shot of getting back in there.
Back in the top 25 at least.
Yeah. Texas. This will be a good matchup this week, Carlos. And this is a good segue for us, Jim. So let us know the games you're looking forward to this weekend. This is kind of an interesting matchup. The Johnny Majors Bowl is
Tennessee against Pittsburgh. That's one of the games that got circled on my list. I think that's going to be a game to watch. You know what's a game to watch? Maybe some people not talking about Appalachian State and Texas A&M. The way Appalachian State played last week against North Carolina, almost getting a dub.
Yeah,
Texas A&M might be in that could be upset alert.
They better be watching some film and not be looking ahead because this App State team's a real good team. They should have at least taken that game into overtime. 40 points.
They went for 2. Quarter. I think they went for 2 on the one drive, and that kind of hurt them because then they had to go for 2, and they almost scored on the 2 points. He just overthrew the guy.
I saw the video of Mac Brown celebrating in the locker room, and if I'm Mac Brown, I got nothing to celebrate there.
I got nothing to celebrate.
My defense is worse than it was last year. In that
40 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, App State's a good team. I'm not saying North Carolina shouldn't be upset with a win there, coming out of there with a win, but you had that game well in hand. You can't give up 40 points in the fourth quarter. Gene Chizik, they brought in here to fix this defense, and they did nothing. So anyway, let's get back to this week's games. What are you looking for?
How about Kentucky, Florida, two ranked teams going at it? That'll be a good game. See if Florida can back it up. Yeah. See if Florida can back that win up against Utah at home. Kentucky, a good team.
I'm a big fan of this Kentucky team, and Mark Stoops done a great job there. They got an experienced quarterback in Levi and a good running game, good defense.
They're going to have to slow down Anthony Richardson, though. Richardson looked good.
How stupid does Dan Mullen look not playing Richardson last year and playing around the quarterbacks?
Stupid. So stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, everybody always likes USC Stanford. That could be that's a big game for USC, to be honest. They can't really lose this game playing against Stanford. And then you have BYU and Baylor. That should be a fun matchup late in the evening.
Yeah, I actually like BYU at home there. Baylor's obviously returning a lot of guys, and they got some momentum last year. Dave Aranda's doing a great job there, but I like BYU there, and that'll be a regular game here because BYU will be moving into that league next year as well. So
yeah, I mean, look, I don't know how much play this one's going to get, but Duke Northwestern could be an interesting matchup. Could be. Depends on what Northwestern team shows up.
It's funny. I got a site that I keep track of coaches on the hot seat, and they've got Pat Fitzgerald from Northwestern on the hot seat. I really don't get it, to be honest with you. I mean, that's a tough place to win to begin with. Had a bad year last year, I'll give you that, but he's done a tremendous job there overall. And the guy gets talked about for NFL jobs all the time. And if you're Northwestern, you're not going to do better than Pat Fitzgerald.
No, I don't think so. I think for me, Arkansas and South Carolina, I think Arkansas gotta back up that win against Cincinnati last week. That was a fun game to watch. I know Cincinnati fell short, But that was a good game.
And
Arkansas
Spencer Rattler got off to a decent start with his new team in South Carolina, so that'll be a decent matchup for sure.
Yeah. I think we touched the major games. I mean, obviously, all eyes will be on Texas, Alabama, but all eyes will be off it real quick when Alabama blows the doors off of them.
We'll get through a couple of we'll go through a couple of comments before we let you go here. John says Nebraska should have fired Frost at the end of last season. I would disagree. He's a guy who had to fire, again, similar to my problems with Aaron Boone keeping his job in New York. He had to fire half his coaching staff to be able to keep his job. And if you're going to throw your guys under the bus, I got no respect for you. So that's the only way he could keep his job. And I don't disagree there, John. I'm not sure what that's about, but the Vols are young and they are young and hungry. I will give you that. We'll see. This is going to be,
that'll be a fun game. That's going to be a fun game.
It will be. I don't want to talk too much about what's Logomir got here. What top 25 do you think has the best chance for an upset? Top 25 do you think has best chance to get upset? Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one. I mean,
I will give you, I'm going to say Baylor.
Baylor.
BYU. I'll give you that.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, I'm looking at the ranked on ranked games. I mean, the only other one would be Kentucky, if you want to call it an upset, 20-12.
And I guess mine are two ranked teams. So I guess if we want to take it with a rank against an unranked
I mean, do you think Texas Tech can pull the upset over Houston at home?
I think it's possible. Texas Tech has got a lot of talent, new coach, new attitude. That's a possibility.
And then, I mean, we both said it. Texas A&M better be on upset alert.
For sure. That's another one. So there's 3 or 4 games. Mac Brown was celebrating that he found a bottle of Jerry. That's a good one, Josh. That's awesome. For UF will be close, but not many can win at the Swamp. It'll be a tough game for Kentucky. Kentucky, I thought Georgia was going to take a step back, and I thought Kentucky had an outside shot of sneaking in that division, but I'm not thinking that after last week. And sorry, Rick Sherlock, forever down your team. BYU showing why losing Zach Wilson was not a big deal. God, he just hates Zach Wilson, that's all. One game ready motivating team. August. I'm not sure what you're talking about there, but most of us have hot seat sites just divide salary by number of wins, and coaches making the most money per win with losing records lead the list. Yeah, I get you. John, we'll talk more here, John. John was having trouble getting his comments in. I think he thought I blocked him for a while, but I didn't do that, John.
We didn't block you. Don't worry.
What do we got here? Alan, we'll let Alan get his last word in here before we let Jim go. Red Raiders will be a surprise contender in the Big 12. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Yeah, I think they may have something going there. And the Big 12 is kind of wide open, I think, this year.
Big 12 defense, baby. No defense at all.
You're right. Well, unless you're Oklahoma State, who for years got by on their offense. Now they can't score any points.
Exactly.
And they win with defense. So anyway, Jim, good stuff for this here for the first week. We'll certainly have you in during this college football season, because you certainly bring a lot to the table. We enjoy having you with us. So thanks for coming in.
I enjoy being here. I mean, first week in the books, fun time, college football back. And it's just, it's good. It's a good time of year.
I always say September and October are awesome. The NCAA's going full blast. You got the NFL kicking off. Major League Baseball's heading down the stretch. The only thing we don't have is the NHL, but that'll be back soon enough too.
Soon enough, October.
Yeah, so you'll be seeing Jim here and on Sundays in October probably. So
absolutely.
And we probably got to get you in to get us caught up on the summer news and hockey anyway on Sundays. So
yeah, we'll figure that out.
We'll do that soon.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks for coming in tonight, Jim. Have a great night.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure. You have a good night.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The great Jim Biringer we'll call him from the Mad Radio Network, but he's also from FullPressHockey.com. He's our hockey expert on TGI Sports Talk. Our Sunday stream of consciousness, he's often in to update us there, but we bring him in as one of our college football experts as well, because he follows that sport very closely as well and always brings some good stuff to the table, as you guys do. Some really good questions there. I want to go back to that question that Lagamer put up. Lagabeer 1012. Thanks for joining us tonight, by the way. Where are you coming in from? I don't. If I saw you posted, I apologize. So look, I'm looking again at the top 25 games, right? So let's just look at them really quickly, since we were going to. I want to run down the games quickly anyway. Southern Miss at Miami. Miami's not going to lose this game. Miami's hopefully they don't get looking ahead, because they've got this game, and then they've got one more against I want to say Colorado State. Let me just pull up Miami's. I got to find the right mouse. Hold on a second. Let me just find Miami's schedule real quick. I guess Southern Miss. No, they got Texas A&M next week. So I don't. Both of these teams, Texas A&M and Miami, have to be careful this week that they're not looking ahead, because they've got a big matchup next week. Very important matchup for both teams. Two teams that have college playoff aspirations, so they got to be careful. Marshall at Notre Dame, not going to happen. Alabama at Texas, not going to happen. Arkansas State at Ohio State, not going to happen. South Carolina at Arkansas, I know John DeLon's going to tell me Shane Rattler stinks, but it's possible. I like what's happening here with this South Carolina team under Beamer, and I really think that they're going to start turning a corner a little bit here. They started to turn the corner last year, so Arkansas should be careful in this game. Vanderbilt will be hosting Wake Forest. According to the Mad New Yorker, Carlos, that could be an upset alert as well. Charleston Southern at NC State, doubtful. I think NC State, after a scare last week against East Carolina, I don't think they're going to have to worry. Furman is not going to beat Clemson. App State at Texas A&M, as we said, that's a game that Texas A&M had better be awake for. Tennessee and Pittsburgh, so that's two ranked teams. I'm going to take the home team here. I like Pittsburgh. I like the grit they showed against the Mountaineers last week coming back, so I like them in that game. Washington State visiting Wisconsin, probably not anything to worry about. I think Wisconsin's going to have a bounce back year this year, and I think this will be a good game for them. I don't think we're going to have to worry there. Sanford is not beating Georgia. This game will probably be over by the end of the first quarter. Akron's not going to touch Michigan State. Texas Tech, as we said, at home against Oklahoma, this is a team to watch out for this week and possibly throughout the season in the Big 12, as we just talked about. Kent State at Oklahoma, don't worry about it. Kentucky at Florida, we're two ranked teams, so it's really hard to say that would be an upset, although I do like Kentucky a lot. Central Arkansas at Ole Miss, no. I know you guys want to hate on Lane Kiffin, but it ain't happening this week. Stanford at home against USC. I'm sure Stanford would love to see this, but David Shaw is on the hot seat. One of the best coaches in the country in my mind. And this team has really taken a downturn the last couple of years. COVID really hit them hard, and they have not been able to recover. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this game. I don't think Stanford's going to have enough here, but I think USC is probably overrated as well. Arizona State going to Oklahoma State, doubtful in my mind. I think it's a dumpster fire there in Arizona State. Herm Edwards is another guy that is on death watch. And I'll get your guys' comments here in a second, I promise. Hawaii at Michigan. Hawaii, if Michigan doesn't beat this team by 50, there's a problem. Vanderbilt went to Hawaii and dismantled them by about 40, I think. And then you got Baylor at BYU. And I would say that team, Baylor's got a chance to lose that team, but I really can't. In the interest of this question, I can't really say that that's a huge upset, obviously. BYU is going to be favored in that game. Okay, let's see what I missed from you guys here. Carlos, you just got to hate on Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's been gone for 2 years now. This is the second season without him. And it's unfair to say many, many teams. Alabama's not missing Mac Jones. Who else can I go with? At the time, Stanford didn't miss not Oliver Luck, but Andrew Luck. Who's the other top quarterbacks in college football that teams wouldn't miss? I mean, come on, that's not. I mean, you can hate on the guy all you want, but that is not an indictment. By the way, and we'll get into it on our Friday show, Carlos. So be prepared. Your indictment of Zach Wilson as an NFL quarterback because he's going to miss these first four games is probably out of line as well. One game ready, motivating team. I've still not one game ready, motivating teams ready. Game. Augustine, I'm trying to figure that out, but I can't quite seem to do it. So we saw some of these comments. I apologize. Here we go. Now we're getting caught up to where I was. They gave up 44 points to Central Michigan. Come on now. What are we talking about? I lost you. My high school team could finish second in the Big 12. John, come on. That's not cool. Just because your team's hogging all the top talent, your team, not your team. By the way, I'd like to know, John, since we're on the SEC and you are the resident SEC elitist and an LSU fan, if my memory serves, we were just talking, and you may not have been in the room yet. We were talking about Brian Kelly and the horrendous special teams that LSU put out there last Sunday night. I think Brian Kelly's going to struggle this year, and LSU is going to struggle this year. If they were going to win a game, Florida State would have been a good place to do. I'm not saying they're not going to win any games, so let me rephrase that. If you're going to get off to a good start, Florida State was a good place to do it. Another team that is really up against it this year. Your special teams did you in. Would you have gone for the two to win the game? I say yes. And they listen, they showed heart. They made mistake after mistake after mistake, but they didn't give up. And I don't know how much of that is LSU's fight and how much of that is Florida State letting them back in the game. Any suggestion? Pac-12 Oregon Ducks. Listen, I would suggest that that Oregon. Listen, they're going to play. Who are they playing this week? I think they've got a cupcake this week. So Augustine. Sorry, I think they'll be fine. I'm still not sure Rattler stinks. I'm really not. We'll find out. He's playing in a better league, theoretically. I know you don't agree with that, probably, Alan, but I've got to agree with John DeLon here. As far as being deep, the SEC is certainly much deeper than the Big 12. The bottom of the Big 12 might be better than the very bottom of the SEC when you talk about Vanderbilt. I don't care. I do not think they're on the up-and-coming list here, Carlos. We'll find out this week. This is a good test for Vanderbilt. Tech is hosting Houston. I think I said that. And if I didn't, yes, they're hosting Houston. Houston, by the way, lucky to get a win last week. I liked Texas San Antonio a lot last week. I was really hoping I'd have a line in the cigar box, and I did not because I would have been all over San Antonio. But they gave Houston all they could handle last week. I can't, I'd hope they wouldn't fire David Shaw either because David Shaw's a good person, good football coach. He'll get gobbled up in a second. Another guy who's been mentioned for NFL jobs many times over the last decade. And I think he'd have no trouble getting another job either in the NCAA or on the next level. So, but you know what? The guys who run these schools are, they're very smart people, but they certainly don't have a lot of common sense. I can tell you right now. I think we've seen that. I think we've seen that through the years. Oklahoma State. Oh, I got you. I guess I was talking about the last 2 years. So I haven't seen enough of Oklahoma State to talk too much about their defense this year. Oklahoma State could not win with their offense last year or the year before. They were winning with defense. luckily they got some better quarterback play last week and were able to withstand that 44 points against Central Michigan. Well, we'll see what happens there, August. That's for sure. Some of these SEC teams, well, you got to give me. I don't know what we're talking about there, Carlos. What's that mean? So here's John on the LSU game. Not overly worried. I'm having trouble talking today, guys. Good grief! I apologize. My brain has been scrambled all day. It's been a crazy couple days at real work, and my brain is kind of fried. So he's not overly worried about the loss. I suspect when Kelly was hired that this would be a foundation building year, and I totally would have gone for 2. Yeah, I would have as well. The college overtime is just I mean, anything can happen. I think there's only 2 possessions. And bear with me. I hate the rule so much. I don't even know what it is anymore because they've changed it several times. And I believe you get a couple possessions and then you just keep going for 2 points until somebody doesn't get it. And it's not even football at that point. So listen, San Antonio's going to Army. I don't like that pick, Alan. And I don't like to pick against the armed forces anyway. So I rarely will do that. It's a great team, believe me. No bigger backer for UTSA than me. They're going to have trouble. Jeff Monkton's a really good coach. Tough game against Coastal Carolina last week on the road. They're coming home to open their season. And that is a very tough place to go play, Alan. I can tell you right now from experience, very, very tough place to play. You know why? Yeah, we were going to try to get tickets for this game. I know I couldn't go because, I know why. I had a wedding. And then the other game we could go to, we got a baby on the way. Let's see. It wouldn't have been worried about LSU either if they didn't lose to Florida State. Listen, Florida State, Mike Norvell's in trouble. This team has got to have a really good year this year in the ACC. I don't think he needs to reach the ACC championship game, which I don't think he will, to save his job, but he's got to have a respectable season. He's got to be ranked, or he's going to be losing his job to Deion Sanders. Arkansas better be ready for South Carolina. I said that, listen, the haters here, and I know I shouldn't say haters. I'm sorry, Alan, and I'm sorry, John. Shane Rattler gets a lot of abuse, and some of it rightfully so. Listen, I watched the kid, as I've told you guys 100 times now, on the Netflix show QB1 that follows high school seniors, top-ranked high school senior quarterbacks through their decision-making process. Through their senior year, they're making decisions on where to go to school. There have been some very prominent guys featured: Josh Fields, Sam Hartman, the kid who played at Georgia here, Rick, Jake Fromm, and also Shane Rattler. And Shane Rattler came off very badly. He didn't finish his senior year. He got kicked off the team. Still nobody knows what happened. And then he had his problems at Oklahoma. But I think the kid's got talent. And this South Carolina team under Coach Beamer has made some great strides. I'm not telling you they're going to compete for an SEC championship game this year, but I think this team will be better than people expect. The SEC is really good. I'd actually rather OT than a field goal. I don't like any. Listen, to be honest with you, I just assume games ended in a tie. I don't like the overtime rules in any of these sports, to be honest with you. Well, I should say either level, NFL, college. I just don't like the way they play it. I don't like the way they play the NHL overtime rules. I don't like baseball anymore because of a man on second base. I mean, they screw up all of these extra inning and overtime games because they think people don't want to play. I say play a full quarter in football or don't play in overtime at all. I think it's ridiculous. After winning versus the Bearcats, they need to go. Yeah. It's a nice win, though, for Arkansas. I actually bet Arkansas last week and did squeak out a victory there. My only winner of the weekend. Carlos is fired up today. Oh, Spencer Rattler. What do I keep saying? Shane Rattler. Shane Beamer. I mix him up with his coach. Listen, if I get one of the names right, Alan, I'm doing pretty good. Spencer. You know, I was sitting here trying to think of Coach Beamer's first name, and it's Shane, I believe. And maybe I'm wrong there again. Thanks for straightening me out there. Why are you shouting at me though, Alan? Jesus, don't shout. You know me, I'm very, very, very delicate. I get offended easily. Oh, John, what do you got here? What bothers you most about the FSU loss is FSU isn't very good. That's what I was saying. I don't think it's a very good team. 8-4 would be a good record. Probably got to take 8-4 for Norvell to win it, keep his job. Probably 7-5. Their O-line was loaded. Flat soppy JUCO transfers. I didn't like the way I listened. I was not impressed with Florida State even a little bit Sunday night. So I get that. You're about to watch QB1? Yeah, go back. I think there's no new ones. I don't know. They stopped during COVID. I don't know if it was COVID that stopped it or they decided to stop making it. I think there was 3 seasons, though, Carlos. I think you'll really enjoy it, especially now that you've seen how some of these guys have done going forward. See that? I was trying to think of Coach Beamer's name while I'm talking about Spencer Rattler. And I think that's what happened to me. And I cannot speak for what goes on in my brain. We've talked about, since the inception of my shows 2 years ago, pretty much on all of them, that Prevagen should definitely be sponsoring me. Because if they were to give me free product and pay me, to talk about them on my show, and you could see the progress in my comprehension and ability to remember things, I think they'd make a fortune. You've been knocking out the sports docs on Netflix. There's some good stuff there, I know. I got to catch up on the other one you and I were talking about, Carlos. I've only watched the one about the Notre Dame linebacker got catfished. I've seen every 30 for 30. ESPN does some great stuff. I think I want a new Beamer. I want to retire. I don't want a Beamer. I would like a BMW sponsorship because, how about Prevagen and BMW? If I can get sponsorships from those two companies, I could probably, make a go of it here. All I want is, I don't know, a few bucks and free product. Give me a free Beamer, give me free Prevagen, and let me loose on the world. Yeah, tail, right. BMW, very expensive. Yes, that's why I want one for free, August. Give me one for free, and then we'll talk about you every week. Manti Te'o, thank you. That was a very good what's the name of that documentary series? There's a whole bunch of different stories. That's the only one I've watched so far. But it's, again, that's a Netflix one, I believe, right? ESPN does some great stuff though too. Make some calls. Would you please make some calls for me? Carlos, any sponsors you find, you will get, well, we'll talk about your fee, but listen, you want to do the legwork, buddy. We're 50-50 split. Teo, what did I say? Maybe that's not his name. I don't know. Oh, gosh. I'll get to wash the car. You can wash my car anytime, Carlos. In fact, my car needs washing now. Oh, let's take a look at a couple things. I want to get into. We talked about playoff expansion, and we can talk about anything you guys want tonight. Let's get into the top 25 a little bit. Then there's some news around college football we might want to chat about as well. So the big winners and losers in the rankings, and I tend to use. I guess I'm going to use the AP because that's what we were talking about the other day, or earlier, I should say, when we were talking about the teams that aren't ranked that may, or teams that are ranked that could lose, or teams that aren't ranked that could get back in. So the biggest loser for the week was Utah, who dropped 6 spots. I shouldn't say that. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, Oregon was 11 last week and dropped out. So they dropped like 14 spots, 15 spots. So they're the big loser. Then you got Utah dropping 6 spots all the way back to 6. It's going to be very hard. They could climb back up there, but they're not going to have a shot at the playoff now with 1 loss out of the Pac-12. It's not going to happen. Who else was big losers last week? Notre Dame loses 3 spots. But again, they can make that up. Notre Dame could make a playoff with 1 loss, especially with a loss to a team that's going to be in the playoff, most likely. NC State off of a very close win. They probably should have lost this game to East Carolina last weekend. They dropped 5 spots. And then you just got some, minor ups and downs. Big winners, Michigan jumps 4 spots off a big win against Colorado State to move into the number 4 spot. So that's a big move for them. Oklahoma moves up 2 spots. USC up 4 from 14 to 10. I'm not getting excited over, a big win over Rice, but, USC's got some really good transfer talent. Obviously, Lincoln Riley is a much better coach than Helton, and this team will be better. Are they ready to compete with some of these top-tier teams yet? Remains to be seen. And again, I do think a Pac-12 team will have to run the table to be able to compete for a playoff spot. I really do. Let me go through this, and I'll come back to your comments. So they were a big winner, let's say, up the polls. Arkansas up 3 from 19 to 16. BYU up to 21. So, and as one of you guys brought up earlier, you got a few teams knocking at the door. Oregon just dropped out. So the team's knocking at the door. Penn State, they're probably got the best shot of popping back in. Maybe Cincinnati. Texas is not going to win. Florida State, maybe. UCF, watch out for UCF. I think they got a good football team this year. They're getting ready to move into Pac-12. This is going to be an up-and-coming program, guys. I've talked about it a lot. They have put more money into their football program and facilities than maybe any program in the country. So watch out for UCF going forward. Fresno State, I think once you get into Fresno State, Minnesota, Kansas State's a sleeper to watch out for this year as well. Those teams are going to have to maybe wait a couple of weeks or have a bunch of teams near the bottom of this poll drop out. Let's see. Will there be an undefeated team? Yeah. Alabama. I don't see Alabama losing. I don't think they'll lose to Georgia. Ohio State could be undefeated. I know the SEC and Big Ten are both gauntlets to run through, right? But I think Alabama's just loaded again. Ohio State showed some chinks in their armor, but it was 1 week, kind of getting the rust off in a real game. So those are the only two teams I could say with any confidence would have a chance to go undefeated, Ohio State and Alabama. I know Rick won't like that because he'll think that Georgia will, but I don't think so. Odds are it won't, right? It won't happen, but I think they can. Michigan moving up 4 spots made no sense. I don't disagree with you there, John. Was their victory over Colorado State any more impressive than Clemson's win or Texas A&M's win, Oklahoma's win? Should they jump those teams? None of them played anybody any good. Texas A&M played Sam Houston State. Colorado State's not a powerhouse. Mountain West is okay. Colorado State is probably better than Sam Houston, but it's not enough for me to say jump them 4 spots. I mean, if you're doing that, then you're telling me you had them ranked wrong in the first place. So, and again, it's week 1, so are these polls that important? Probably not. Well, they are, in the sense that, the further down you end up or start from, the harder it is to get up to that into those playoff positions. But it's happened more than you think. Teams have come, I'm going to say probably at least, and somebody can check this for me, I'm going to say at least 4 times teams have come from outside the top 25 to get to a playoff. Maybe I'm misremembering that fact, but Alan, you're my resident quick looker-upper. We'll see. Alan's not saying it will happen, but don't be surprised if Stanford beats USC Sunday. I think this game will be closer than you think. Stanford, as I talked about a little bit before, and David Shaw have a lot to prove this year. And I think it's a pivotal year for Stanford, especially with USC and UCLA getting ready to move in a couple of seasons. Stanford needs to show something so that somebody wants them. They fit the Big Ten, to be honest with you, in further realignment that will come before this new playoff takes place. I guarantee it. Stanford would fit really well with what the Big Ten wants to do. It would get more make geographic sense because you'd have natural rivals for USC, UCLA. Notre Dame plays Stanford every year if Notre Dame were to move to the Big Ten. Academically, they match up with what the Big Ten likes to look for. But this is a big season. These next couple of years are going to be important for David Shaw and Stanford going forward. Did I say the Pac-12? Big 12. There's too many 12s. There's not even those. How many teams are in the Big 12, by the way? How many teams are in the Pac-12? Why can't these conferences count? SEC's got it right. Don't put a number to your freaking league if you aren't going to have that number of teams. Big 10. Anyway, USC is the only Pac-12 team making the playoff. Well, they're the only Pac-12 team with a shot. But I don't see them making the playoff. I don't think they can do it. They lose a game. And I do not see any way this USC team is going to run the table. Now, their game with Oregon doesn't look quite as daunting. But UCLA is going to be better. Utah is still going to be a very formidable opponent. Washington, I think, will be better. I don't think they get by all those teams. OSU looks too similar to last year in the sense that they recoil when the other team punches them in the mouth and gets physical with them. Well, that's a good point. Look, at their defense was better. And again, I don't know how much it was Ohio State's defense and Notre Dame's lack of offense and experience at the quarterback position. I think Notre Dame's offense will get better through the course of the year. Notre Dame made a concerted effort to get better on defense this year because they know that's what beat them, and the lack of physicality beat them, as John pointed out. So I think that's something that they need to look at closely going forward. Let me look at some of the other games outside of the top 25 coming up this week. And you guys continue to bring up topics. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Let me look at a couple of quick news. I mentioned Sam Hartman will be back. We'll see whether he's going to play this week. Jesus, not much for me to really talk about. News-wise, Seminoles did lose their starting offensive tackle. Bless Harris for the entire football season. Nothing really newsworthy to talk about. So let's look a little deeper into the schedule. And I'll give you my lock and my don't be surprised if as we do this, okay? So here's some other games outside the top 25 that we may not have talked about. Interesting games. I think Missouri at Kansas State's an interesting game. Kansas State's going to be an interesting team this year, I think, in the Pac-12. This isn't a league game, obviously. It would have been at one time, but it is not anymore. But Kansas State, I want to see how they get off against, Missouri's not at the top of the SEC, obviously, but it'll be interesting to see how they do against an SEC team at home. So it'll be worth watching. Jim mentioned Duke at Northwestern might have some interest. Ohio at Penn State, no. I like that UTS at Army. I'm going to pick Army in this game. Just because of Jeff Monken, just because of the home game for Army, and just probably because I don't like to pick against military academies if I don't have to. But I think that's an interesting game as well, as Jim pointed out. Appalachian State and Texas A&M. That might be my don't be surprised if as we go through here. Games out. Memphis at Navy. Navy's been down the last couple of years. That American Conference, if Houston is the team most likely to step up, the team that's talked about stepping up most of the time in that conference. But I think it's very balanced, and it'll be interesting to see if a team like Memphis or UCF or in their last year there, or SMU, who's I think will take a step back without Sonny Dykes this year, or Navy can maybe rebound. Coach Ken, who I will not try to say his name, could be in some trouble there at Navy. He's had a couple of down years. Usually a very competitive team. If Navy's another team that I think needs to make some strides this year, and I think you will see a better effort out of Navy this year in the American Conference for sure. What else do we like here? We talked about Houston at Texas Tech, but those are ranked teams. Portland State, no. How about Iowa State, Iowa? You want to talk about an interesting game of unranked teams? I'm going to actually take Iowa to bounce back here with a better showing at home against their in-state rival. Iowa State's got a really good coach in Campbell, always talked up for all the openings, but they weren't that good last year. And I'm not sure how well they've restocked those shelves, so it'll be interesting to see what they can do. See what we got here. We got a couple of comments here. Holy flashback, Missouri K-State, right? Big 8 vibe. That's a Big 8 vibe, not even a Big 12 vibe, I think, Alan. They played in the original Big 8 against each other. The lock this week is easy. Bet Bama over. Is Texas going to score? What's the over? I don't even know what it is. I don't have the lines in front of me. I'm trying not to look at the lines when I do these picks and just pick winners. Alan's changing his picks. Texas Tech is a lock. Upset over Houston. Well, you can't have both. Oh, I guess you could. And don't be surprised if Stanford shocks the world again by beating USC. And who's Austin P got this week, by the way, Carlos? Maybe I'll see him. I thought they were playing a FBS division this year. see what else we got here that I like. Virginia at Illinois could be an interesting inter-conference game. Let's see. Kansas at West Virginia. Kansas is always bad. Is Kansas ever going to get any good? JT Daniels, by the way, with a nice game last week for West Virginia. I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. He transferred from Georgia. Good start last week to his career in a loss to Pittsburgh. And I think the Mountaineers will be – listen, they could be a team that could be sneaky okay in that Big 12. And it can be very interesting to see what they do this year. I like JT Daniels, always did. But with Stetson Bennett coming back and winning a national championship last year, one of the better walk-on stories in recent seasons, Stetson Bennett, he certainly wasn't going to get any playing time in Georgia. And I believe this is his senior year. And I believe it's his third school. Didn't he start out, if Rick's still with us, I believe he started out at USC. Let's see. Old Dominion, who had an upset win last week over who? Virginia Tech. Old Dominion moving into the FBS division this year, I believe, with a nice win over Virginia Tech. They're going to East Carolina, who had a tough loss at North Carolina State. That'll be an interesting out of the top 25 realm. UAB at Liberty is a game I've got some interest in Saturday as well. Both of these teams, UAB had a really good season last year. Liberty, a good independent school. It's had some pretty good seasons. They're trying to replace Malik Willis, obviously, as their leader and their go-to guy on offense. We'll see whether they can do that. And Syracuse at UConn. Syracuse with a nice win at home over Louisville. Going to UConn, may be able to get off to a 2-0 start. Take the heat off of Dino Babers. Dino Babers is another guy in a hot seat, a really good football coach, but things have kind of come apart at the seams there at Syracuse the last couple of years after a pretty nice year, I think, in 2019, I want to say. But Dino Babers is a good football coach, and he needs to get some wins, and really good shot to start 2-0. Jim Moore's team went to is 1-1. They went to Utah State and lost to opening week. Played a representative game. I think they lost by 7 or 8 points. Beat Central Connecticut last week. No big shakes there. Boy, there are a lot of games this week. For something else of interest. Something else. Give me something else. Boston College at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech in a tough spot. They better look to win this week. BC with a disappointing loss against Rutgers last week. So this is a big game for both of these teams. What else? Eastern Washington is a team that's going in to play Oregon this week, by the way, Augustin. So your team should be able to win. Mexico State at UTEP. UTEP, very disappointing start, 0-2. They weren't expected to beat Oklahoma, but I did think they would have won their opening game. Oregon State at Fresno State could have some interest. So there's some of the games of interest out. And Mississippi State going to Arizona. Arizona's terrible. Their coach is another coach that's going to be on the hot seat here. So we got a few minutes left. Let's get to your comments here. Austin P. Missouri Valley's next for the Govs. 2007 Jayhawks had their only relevant season. That was under Mark Mangino, correct? Who ended up getting fired. He's been the only successful coach there in about 3 decades. Went to an Orange Bowl, and then he gets fired because, again, he was too tough on the kids. Now, maybe there's more to the story than that. But I'm always fascinated when some of these, and again, I don't know the whole story, obviously, but we'll see. Austin P. Austin P. I'm assuming this is what Carlos is talking about. We'll be playing Alabama November 19th. Don't get your hopes up, Carlos. 65.5. So the question's going to be, John, can Texas score enough? I mean, let's just assume Alabama gets 45. Maybe they'll get 50. Can Texas score 2 touchdowns? I'm not sure that they can. East Carolina was close last week for sure. Fun fact, Old Dominion had 2 wins. Has had 2 wins against FBS schools, both against Virginia Tech. That's a fun fact. Well, they better have more because they're playing a full FBS sorry, I got distracted by a message from work, believe it or not. Yeah, they're going to be playing a full FBS schedule now, so they're going to have to win more than a couple of games now if they're going to have any success. I'm betting the house and the kids on making. Come on, Carlos. Well, maybe if you think they can win, your kids are probably better off being lost in this bet. If I can say that. Oh, Power 5. Well, you said FBS. That's what confused me, I thought. Power 5, not just FBS. Well, those are those are both wins against a Power 5 school for sure. The spread on the Alabama game, listen, don't do it, Carlos. I'd hate to see you lose your kids and your home and have no roof over your head. You have to come up here and live in Kenny Gifford's guest cabin. That's okay, Alan. Jeez, you don't have to. Misspeaking is part of the shtick on this show, so you can do it all you want. What else we got to look at, guys? We got a couple of minutes left. I know. I'm gonna have to respond to that thing from work here. Good grief! Shouldn't have left my Teams open. So anyway, we're heading into week 2, guys. It's been a really good first week of the season. Thanks to Jim Biringer for coming in today. Thank you guys for your participation, Carlos and John, DeLon, Alan, Augustin, you as well, and our new I haven't seen him here in a little while. Rick Sherlock, obviously. I'm trying to find our new guy. It's been a little while since he spoke, and I say it's a guy. That's maybe it's Low Gamer 1012. I didn't get anything information on who it is, and hopefully it's a he. If I said he, I know I probably offended somebody, or that's what I do. I hope it's not back to Montreal. Jeez, good grief. Texas will score garbage time TDs and wind up with about 21 points. Score will be about so that's 71. That's a tough number to lay, though, John. If that game is in the cigar box, which is where my wagers get made, that's a tough. Both the spread on the game and the over-under is going to be tough. 65.5 is really tough. If you put a gun to my head, I'm going to say it's got to go over, right? So, do I speak French? No, I do not. I barely speak English, as you can tell from my shows. So, anyway. Guys, good week. Listen, we've had a couple of good weeks under our belt with games actually to play with, to talk about and play around with the rankings and talk about what we like, what we don't like. You guys have been a great inspiration for this show. The audience participation is something that I thrive on, even when I disagree with you, Carlos and John and whomever. If Texas wins, you'll die laughing. People in Alabama won't die laughing. You'll just die. You're going to die laughing, you'll just die. I'm beginning to wonder about you, Carlos. What's going on down there? All right, guys, it's been a good show, and I'm glad you guys came in tonight. We'll be back next week. We got a lot of games to talk about next week. We got some big games coming up next week as well. My Hurricanes get Texas A&M next week after knocking off Southern Miss this week at home. You guys have a great Wednesday night. Enjoy the college football. We'll see you next week. We'll see you Friday on Are You Serious with the one Carlos Chavez, the Mad New Yorker. Have a great day, guys. That's good. Jack can deal poker in French. I'm not playing poker with you. Have a great night, guys.